we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from the Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and of course, the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that magical 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can share, subscribe. That's right. Subscribe today. Hit that little button right below us, right there for you so you get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the latest pop culture cosmos related show, whether we're going on for tabletop RPG action or more. Go ahead and check it out today, right here when you subscribe or like us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. She is the magistrate of everything tabletop RPG action, including Forbidden Lands. Also, as well, she's heavily involved in the making of a new season of Empires Vitae, plus also everything she does within the realm of tabletop RPG action. It is my good friend. It is Melinda Barkhouse Ross. And Melinda, great to have you here. Movies. Marvel. Star Trek. Doesn't get any more nerdy or pop culture than that.
Or perfect. You left the word perfect out of that.
Well, if we threw some video games in there, that would be great. But I'm doing that on Monday's show, and we've been doing that for the past couple of weeks. So, I think all these conferences are starting to subside. We don't have an E3, but it was kind of like an E3 where all these different publishers and developers, they had their own press conferences and showcases. My gosh, no E3 was an E3, and it just seemed like E3, but it wasn't E3. So we'll go from there. But no video game talk really on this episode. That's going to be for Monday when Josh Peterson returns. I'm looking forward to that. Plus, Dawn Fobbs talks her best of television so far in 2023. For us today, though, it is The Flash. We're going to be talking about some of that. Plus, also as well, Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2. Marvel's Secret Invasion coming up next week on Disney Plus, and of course, what we're going to talk about here as well later in the show, we're going to give out some grades on some of these summer movies and how they've performed so far at the box office as well. But first, my friend, speaking of the box office, the movie most expected to take the top spot this weekend, and I would think it would be a major disappointment with all the money spent on advertising and hype and all the things that we've been talking about, both positive and negative in regards to this. It is The Flash with Ezra Miller. It is coming out this weekend. And you and I have talked extensively about this, but I think we really need to go ahead and get it into a little bit more detail because it is here. I think it's still coming out well too soon. I think if this is supposed to be a soft reboot, excuse me, the part of the pun here, but Flashpoint for a new DC universe, I really think it should have come after everything that's all said and done that's made that in the non-James Gunn universe first, but it's here, and it's looking to go ahead and do some of the damage that has been done over the past few years, all this disarray, all the Snyderverse wannabe stuff that was going on in the past couple of years, and actually close to 10 years now. Looks like it's going to be either erased or lightly dusted over or transformed or moved away with everything that's going on in The Flash.
Yeah, and everything that I'm seeing and I'm reading from reviewers and stuff like that has all been incredibly positive
It has
for
been.
the movie. So that's good to hear. I'm also I found it interesting because a lot of the stuff that you and I were seeing and that we had talked about kind of showed us or showed them almost doing like a recut sort of. I don't mean that literally, but it just in philosophy. Oh my gosh, I don't know. But a lot of the stuff that I saw was them taking the focus off of the Flash and putting it onto Batman instead in the movie. But now I feel like there's been a refocus again on the character of the Flash. It just seems to be that he's the again the focus of a lot of the ads and stuff like that I'm seeing. So it's just been kind of interesting to watch how all of this has rolled out and how they're handling or not handling the troubles that Ezra Miller is going through.
Hey, Jen, good to have you here in the house. Always great to have you part of what we're doing here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. You know, you're welcome to come on the show anytime you want when you're available to do so. Always glad to have you here watching. But it is the Flash. It is the big ticket this weekend, or so it seems, because also coming out this week, and we'll go a little bit more as far as all the controversy, and we'll gloss over that once again, and our apprehensions on seeing this film after what's gone on here in the first place. We'll touch on that in a sec, but some other interesting things that are happening in the world of the box office. And I think this is going to be, again, another sore spot for Pixar as Elemental comes out this weekend. Something that I thought, you know, actually would be a well thought of movie, but the timing, it reminds me a lot of what's going to go take place next month with Barbie and Oppenheimer. I really think only one movie of these two this weekend will thrive. It's not going to be both The Flash and Elemental. I really think that's the problem. And I thought that Disney may have made a mistake in releasing it this week.
Yeah, and you know that the movie looks like another adorable movie. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing that one.
Well, that one I'm going to go ahead and say I'm hopeful for something really good. Again, I've told you I have someone that I've known for a long time that works at Pixar that's really hopeful for some good returns after what happened last year with Lightyear, Turning Red, which was absolutely fantastic. That should have been the movie that actually got released to theaters and not Lightyear. I really think that they could have reversed their fortunes. Coming out this time around, head up against the Flash, I think was a mistake on Disney's part. Usually they're
Yeah.
very careful about that. And we'll talk about some of the changes going on with some of the movies they have coming down the road here in a little bit as well. But when it comes to Elemental, a movie which, you know, is garnering decent reviews, it's not being thrashed over like Elemental was. It's not considered one of the best Pixar movies, but still, you know, it's got a good movie. You know, it's kind of always a good heart and a good story to tell. I really like the fact that it's kind of like two teenagers in love, but because they come from two sides of this different sides of the street, that you know, there's different, in this case, different elements. That it's, you know, if you're looking into the bigger picture and what it represents, I think it tells that great narrative. I think that people need to go ahead and check this out. Your thoughts a little bit more on why Elemental would appeal to you as something you may eventually go see.
Well, I just I don't know, it just perhaps it's the animation style, perhaps it's a need to have something that is adorable and fun to watch that is going to carry a positive message to it. And I mean, that's purely speculation at this point, but I can't imagine a Pixar movie that's going to end on a downturned note. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And I think that any opportunity that you can have to get kids to a movie that's going to encourage a conversation around any kind of thing that could be considered to be like an adult if issue or an adult problem, that kind of stuff, or like an adult focused situation. I think that it's a good one, and I think that these Pixar movies as they come out, including even oh gosh, sorry, Inside Out,
Inside Out, yep,
Inside Out.
excellent.
You know, like I and even with the big red
Wait,
panda.
oh, Turning Red.
I'm so sorry, Gerald. I'm missing all of the beats here for you today.
That's
But
okay.
yeah,
You're
and
doing
Turning
just
Red,
fine.
I think that it's giving an opportunity and a platform for parents and kids to have those conversations, and I think it's really important, and I think that it's a lovely opportunity and a great way to start that conversation with kids.
I hope so. I hope so
Yeah.
because again, I think, you know, it's always a very subtle way of storytelling with Pixar.
Mhm.
I know that you know, they've not gotten the same kind of love that they once did with their movies, but again, Turning Red for us was one of the best of last year. still very, very, very high on it. I think Elemental will tell a good story as well. Whether or not it will achieve financial success remains to be seen. Might be one of those ones that stays under the radar, but gets consistent money each and every week. Whereas the Flash will be, the flash in the pan type deal where it'll get a lot of its money up front. So we'll see what happens. But with the Flash, again, it is earning some decent reviews out there as well. Ezra Miller, whether or not his future in the DC universe, the Justice League, or whichever way you want to say it, that is still very much in question due to the legal issues that they have attained over the course of the past few years. Almost said he, meant to say they. So, your thoughts on this? You and I have talked about this extensively off and on the air. Something that has prevented you from actually wanting or desiring to go see this movie, and I
Yeah.
cannot say I blame you.
Hmm.
But they have made a statement in recent days. Obviously, at the premiere at the Flash, they had to say something, and obviously they're trying to turn a corner. They're trying to get help that they need in order to go ahead and become a better person and put a lot of this in the past.
Yeah, and that's certainly the hope. I think that a lot of people have for Ezra. I think that once they um, begin to unpack whatever it is that's going on there, I think that it's going to do a lot of great things for them. I think it's going to give them a deeper understanding of themselves, which is incredibly important to have as you grow and into a proper functioning person in society. And I think that therapy is an incredible way to do it. I'm purely speculating on what kind of help that they are getting. But you I'm rooting for them. I want them to do well. I want them to get the help that they need, and it sounds like they are open to the help, which is an incredibly huge first step. So whatever is going on there, I do hope that they can find a way to come through it and can find a way to come back to a positive place. And I hope that um, this is an example of how a person can kind of get through something that is obviously very difficult, whatever it is that they're facing, and land back on their feet and continue to keep going on the up and up. I don't think that this is where their journey in terms of the entertainment industry is going to end. I think that that's going to continue for a while because I do think that they're incredibly talented, and I do hope that they continue on this path. And I really do think that they're good. They're going to do fine once they come out on the other side of it.
Well, let's certainly hope so for them and also for the DC universe and actually their career as well. Let's see if that's going to take place. I want that to believe that they are going to get better and they are going to be a productive individual in society once again.
Yeah.
And again, looks like we'll probably won't deter too many people outside of you and maybe me as well about going to see the Flash in theaters. I think there's still going to be a market for it. It's still expected to do number one of the box office. We'll definitely see. But the last movie of the weekend, it's in limited release so far. It'll be rolled out to a wider audience here later in the month. Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. So your thoughts? This one is going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's just the weird, quirky Wes Anderson style of movie making. You either get it or you don't. And believe me, there's a lot of people that just don't like Wes Anderson movies, and I cannot say I blame you. But for me, I do like them. I do enjoy them. There are some really good ones as far as that he's made in the past 25 years, which really stand at the test of time and really are some of the best movies that have come out there. And I think that this movie is being well thought of. In IGN's case, they thought it was one of the best, if not the best, Wes Anderson movies. I don't know if that's the case. I think it's still, again, being thought of in the realm of a very good movie for Wes Anderson and a very good movie overall. But your thoughts on Asteroid City? It's just laden with a whole bunch of star power. Is that enough to get it done?
I mean, it could be because it seems like every time I see the commercial, I see another actor that I didn't know was in this film, and I think that that's a credit to Wes Anderson and his style of movie making, and the enjoyment that actors must get out of being involved in one of his projects. Because, yeah, I mean that's a big roster. That's a whole lot of stars he has in that movie.
Absolutely. I just the list goes on and on from Tom Hanks, Lee Schreiber, just the Steve Carell, just a list that goes on. Scarlett Johansson, just
Yeah.
the list goes on. Margot Robbie's in there as well, because she's not busy enough as is. So yeah, there's just a ton of big names in this, and it's just the quirkiness of what's going on. This is truly a Wes Anderson film. I'm actually looking forward to catching it sometime. I don't know when, and I know it's in limited release, but if you are out there and you do enjoy Wes Anderson movies, or you actually want to know what one is really all about, go ahead and check out Asteroid City starting this weekend. And I think you'll be glad you did.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's only going to be a positive experience.
Absolutely, indeed. But what are your thoughts on this weekend at the box office? Are you in a flash to go see the Flash? Or is it Elemental? You'll see Elemental. Or are you looking up for some asteroids at Asteroid City? Please let us know your thoughts on what you're checking out at the box office this weekend. Pop Culture Cosmos at yahoo.com. Well, there's so much more to discuss on today's episode, Melinda. Just great to have you here. Once again, it's Gerald Glassford along with Melinda Barkhouse Ross. Please check out the latest season of Vampires of Vitae heading your way this weekend, right there for you. Whether you like it or not, it is coming at you. So there you go. Vampires and Cowboys. It doesn't get any better than that. It is Vampires and Vitae season 3. So go ahead and check it out this weekend. Looking forward to it indeed. But my friend, on this episode, I still want to talk about something that you and I both enjoy talking about, and that is Star Trek. And I've been called the Star Trek fan, and I thought I was the Star Trek fan of the show until you came, you energized, that you went through the transporter beam and you energized onto this show. So you are the Star Trekkie. You're the Trekkie of the show. I have to say, I'm knowledgeable on Star Trek, as I've told you. I've seen either all or parts of all the series, but not everything. So I can't recite everything. So I can't, go ahead like you with your Klingon, your second language. I'm sorry. Well, you're Canadian. You're French,
Yeah,
English, and
Klingon.
Klingon. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. Yeah, absolutely. So you're trilingual there. So DGen is putting out Life Aquatic of Steve Souza. Yeah, that's absolutely great. Great performance by Bill Murray. Absolutely, on Wes Anderson movies. Yeah, if anybody needs help with Wes Anderson movies, hit us up at Pop Culture Cosmos. We would really love. We give you a list. I will take time to give you a list of Wes Anderson movies to go ahead and check out, because there's some really good ones indeed. But Star Trek: Strange New Worlds season 2, which I told you last year when we were doing our countdown of the best in pop culture, was in my top 10. I think in my top 5. I think I put it as far as some of the best television or pop culture, period, that came out last year. And I told you it was awesome. The fact it was episodic, the fact it was going back to the old days of the original series and going, what is this new monster or new planet of the week that they're dealing with, instead of just an overarching story like we've seen for years now with Discovery and Picard and some of this other stuff that's going on. It works to an extent, but it was kind of a fresh change to go back to the way it once was with the original series. I'll ask you this though. The thing that generated the most interest, and the reason why I gave it such a high score, is that it just came across that they all enjoyed working with each other and working on this platform, the Star Trek platform. Your thoughts, because you can see it now. If you go to Paramount Plus on their YouTube channel, you can see season 1 in its entirety. They've got all the episodes there. Season 2 is coming out this weekend. Are you excited for season 2 of Strange New Worlds?
Of course. And I am mildly upset that you have to have Paramount Plus in order to be able to watch this Star Trek. It's to me, it's a disservice to the fandom. And I understand, you want to drive people to get subscriptions and you want them to subscribe and do
Well,
all of
this
that.
leads to a larger question I have for you, but keep
Mhm.
going. Keep going.
Well, no, it just I don't like that. I think that Star Trek should be for the people.
So I ask you this,
Mhm.
and this is something I've been thinking about since I've been actually talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And this is some of the best Star Trek you can see, period. Hands
Yeah.
down. Stop right there. It is on Paramount Plus. You're right. CBS, Paramount, they don't have enough faith, in fact, to put this on a broadcast network platform. They didn't have enough faith to put Discovery in a first run on that platform either. They put it like later in the cycle. They put back episodes on it, and it did nothing during the summer, and they decided to put it from there, and that was back in season 1 of Discovery. So they really gave it no chance of that. I want to ask you this, and we've also talked, and this leads me into the larger scope of Star Trek because of the fact that it has an audience, but how big is that audience? How big does that audience translate into numbers and dollars? Reason why I'm asking you is because I've been thinking about it long and hard since I saw the interview with Chris Pine, pitching Dungeons and Dragons. When asked about Star Trek, he said he wouldn't mind doing many more. So he doesn't mind playing Kirk many more times. It's not something he's tired of. The thing is, though, we also saw in 2008 probably one of the best, if not the best representation ever of a Star Trek that could go ahead and generate enthusiasm or generate interest to a larger audience. I mean, you may not think it's the best Star Trek film. I think it's the best Star Trek film for a casual audience that has ever been created.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I
that
mean,
that
just
really is.
the appeal of it is just something that it appealed to Trekkies, and it over the years on cable, and it's been one of the most watched movies of the past 10 years. It's just appealed to a larger audience, but it only garnered less around $500 million worldwide. Is there a limit to Star Trek fandom? And that's the reason why there's no $1 billion Star Trek movies and there's no big mega hit broadcast television series.
Well, I think that there's a couple of things happening, and I think Star Trek kind of fell into almost relying on the techno babble for a little while, particularly with Next Generation. It is really what I'm thinking of. It's kind of the first thing that comes to mind with the techno babble. But
Because when it was generating, when TNG, and I will give them
Mhm.
effort, and also Deep Space Nine, when they were in syndication,
Yeah.
they were garnering and generating huge multi-million numbered audiences. So I will give them respect on that, but they weren't on a broadcast outlet. They were on your local market. They were, wherever they could go ahead and put the show on. They were not on a CBS, ABC, NBC here in the United States. And I don't think they were on in Canada, the main channels for Canada as well.
So I think that what the risk that they need to take, to me, I think, is to put Star Trek Discovery, and they need to not Star Trek Discovery, I'm sorry, Strange New Worlds, and put it on a network, give it a time slot, and allow people to discover it. Allow people to sit down and sample it and see that you're not going to get lost in a bunch of Star Trek jargon when you're watching the show. There is some, but there's not as much as there once was. It really does seem like it has taken the focus and put it back onto the crew and the stories and the interpersonal relationships that happen on the ship. And I think that once people discover that, then they're going to then they're it's going to be off to the races. I think it's going to just go super super huge.
Because I mean, in the annals of streaming, first things first. Okay, if you and I were creating a Star Trek show,
Yep.
the first place I want to put it is on Netflix because that has the worldwide audience. The largest audience that can actually see it would be on Netflix right now or Amazon, something like that, where there's 200 million plus subscribers. That's obviously number one. Now, broadcast television has more than 200 million homes available to it, but you and I both know on a regular basis, 7 to 10 million people tops watch television at the same time as far as broadcast is concerned. So, if that's the case, fine. But Paramount Plus is not one of the largest, not even by a long shot, as far as have that reach. It's still trying to get to 100 million, much less 200 million. So to me, I think it's imperative that they try to go ahead and put a Star Trek series on broadcast television and see it click, because I mean there's so many dramas that they throw on, so many formulaic stuff that they have. They have this audience at CBS, an older audience. They do skew older. I get that. I understand, but maybe a Star Trek Strange New Worlds would just try to would resonate with a younger audience on broadcast television. But to me, I think it leads to a larger issue of Star Trek and its popularity, about how I think it has a ceiling. Because again, I do want another Star Trek movie out there with the crew, the Kelvin crew that we know of, with Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, et cetera, Zoe Saldana, and all
Mhm.
that. I'm just not sure if it'll ever outpace the performance of the original Star Trek, even though it has to, the original Star Trek reboot, even though it has to, simply by sheer financial numbers. Because if you put out another movie, it's going to cost 200 to 250 million, and you need to admit to make at least 5 to 700 million before you can even sneeze and get something else done.
Yeah, and I think that, um, honestly, I think that Strange New Worlds is the iteration of Star Trek that could do that. I
Mhm.
really do. I think that, the gentleman who plays Captain Pike, Anson, I'm sorry, I can't
Anson
remember his
Mount.
last name.
Anson Mount,
Yeah,
yes.
he's so good. He's so
Didn't I
good.
didn't I scream at you at this time last
Mhm.
year about how good he was, and how I was so mad that he was the in the Marvel show, the series, the Inhumans, that bombed terribly, that and his role as the guy, as the superhero who cannot speak, and when he does yell whatnot, it's so loud, it just resonates so bad, it
Yeah.
destroys and kills things. So he cannot literally speak. He is so good at what he does, and yet he was not able to speak for Marvel. And I thought it was absolutely sin to Kevin Feige. And I thought one of his biggest bumbles was actually not have Anson Mount on a higher platform. You're right. He leads and carries this series. Everybody else is great in it, but I'm just telling you right now, it's just something that I think was a miss by Marvel and a hit for Star Trek. But again, is that enough to resonate this with a larger audience?
I think so, because I think that the core of a Star Trek show is the captain. And if the captain of the ship is not compelling, if the captain of the ship is not interesting, if the captain of the ship isn't carrying some kind of conflict, or whatever it is that is an overarching plot to the show, not just your episodic one, I think that it's doing a disservice. And I think that Star Trek is at its best when it has a captain who is the core of the show, and I think that Captain Pike does that. I think that Anson plays it beautifully, and it's a shame that this is not getting network exposure.
It's just, the thing is, if it's being watched by 20 million people each and every time out, I wouldn't say a thing. But when the shows these days, like Secession, that's with
Yeah.
all the hype and interest that it's got. Supposedly, it got one of the highest ratings ever it's gotten. And still, we're talking about 3 or 4 million people on HBO. No longer, don't call me HBO Max, just Max. So that to me is troubling, that it's not reaching that kind of Netflix size audience. And I again, I just think that I would love to see Star Trek be at that platform where Star Wars has been at, where Star Wars can just generate and throw a Star Wars in front of whatever movie until they ruin the series, that they could just go ahead and make $1 billion. Star Trek does not have that same kind of luxury.
If they were going to take it and put it onto a network, you market it as "This ain't your daddy's Star Trek."
Okay.
Right? And because Star Trek, I mean, even the next generation with Picard, who I love dearly, will always be my number one captain. Please don't get what I'm about to say wrong, but Star Trek, it can be stuffy, and it can be a task to follow the show and a task to believe in the story that they're telling. But I don't think that Strange New Worlds suffers from that. So I think that that's why, if they were going to move it on to a network, and if they did make it look super sexy, super flashy, pitch it as this isn't your daddy's Star Trek or your father's Star Trek or your mom's Star Trek or your grandfather's Star Trek, whatever. I think that that could lead to some new interest and new people brought into the fandom.
DGen ask, and once again, thanks so much for being a part of the PCC Multiverse. Truly appreciate it. It's Gerald Glasser along with Melinda Barkhouse Ross. We're talking Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, which is now available on Paramount Plus, plus also talking about the larger picture when it comes to Star Trek. And DGen in our audience is asking, do you think it would be possible, or would it do well? Do you think it'd be possible that it would do well on something like a YouTube TV? You know what? I said the same thing about Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai, as far as on YouTube, that did outstanding, but you saw it eventually. YouTube folded that part of its operations and went to Netflix. On a YouTube TV, they don't, YouTube TV itself, if you look at it, YouTube TV is just something that it just think of it as a cable provider. So it still needs the networks to go ahead and do that. They don't produce any more original content. They got out of that market. In fact, they got out of what Red Table Talk, I think, also as well, and some other shows. Plus, no, that was Facebook. I'm sorry. Plus, they got out of Cobra Kai, and obviously that went over to Netflix, and you saw what a hit that became. So I think that if it was on a platform like YouTube, like we're seeing now, it's getting about 100, 200,000, 300,000 views. Season 1 is for stuff that's been out a year. Just think if it generated some type of mass audience. But yeah, I just think if it was on a Netflix, it would go gangbusters over there.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the part I'm really sad about, is that it's going to come out to pretty good reviews and still just not get anything more than a good thing, or yeah, it's great, or some decent numbers, and get a season 3 generated for it. It's still being beaten out by Yellowstone and 1883 and all those other Yellowstone related projects, which I think, if that's your cup of tea, more power to you. Mine is more of the fantasy and sci-fi. So I'm hoping for the best when it comes to Star Trek Strange New Worlds in season 3. Gerald's Netflix comment is looking better by the minute, a la Cobra Kai. I'll tell you what, I was on there early with Cobra Kai. I will stay by Cobra Kai, and I will die with Cobra Kai. And I'm so ticked off in Netflix with Cobra Kai that they're going to end it. I think that's an absolutely stupid move for a top 10 rated show on Netflix. So absolutely, you got my rant. There you go. But Star Trek, one last question though, Melinda. We've talked about the popularity, we talked about the expanded reach of it. Do you ever see the day where there's another absolutely monumental hit in the offering from Star Trek, be it a $1 billion movie or a show that everybody is talking about, like The Last of Us, or something, the biggest shows on broadcast television, something that has and generates what people are talking about? Do you ever see the day a Star Trek related project is going to do that?
Well, absolutely, but it's going to take people who are willing to kind of shed the cocoon of what Star Trek has been, and allows it to evolve into the next thing that Star Trek will be. And please, I don't want anybody to think for even 2 seconds that I am not a Star Trek fan of the original series, of The Next Generation, of Deep Space Nine. Go back and watch Deep Space Nine. That show was so good. And when it was on TV, I can remember as a Next Generation
Even
stan.
Enterprise with Scott Bakula
Yeah,
is really
like
good.
all of that. It was so good. And
That
I
was only made on a $20 budget, seemingly, compared to the others.
right, with his sweet tea as his favorite drink. But i
Exactly.
think i think that Star Trek has immense potential, but I think that the box that Star Trek gets put in is the thing that is its own worst enemy, I suppose, is what I'm trying was what I want to say, but I don't know that it's conveying what I mean. open the lid and let Star Trek breathe a little bit. Let new people discover the show. Let new people discover the universe that Star Trek exists in. And then start to tell those compelling stories again, and start to really get back to the sense of wonder and all of that kind of stuff, that Star Trek, once I felt anyway as a fan, once used to have kind of front and center.
I'll tell you what, my friend, it's always great to talk to you about Star Trek. I know that you and I have a great, just a love and appreciation for the IP. DGen says, if Bar Rescue beats Star Trek, I am canceling Paramount Plus. And I told him, you know what? Knowing the crowd that watches Paramount Plus and the ratings that it used to get when it was on Spike TV, you might have to cancel Paramount Plus, unfortunately, because Star Trek is so underappreciated and it just takes the right series. I don't know if it'll ever reach the heights that I wanted to. I'm just not convinced of that because, again, I think you and I have already seen the best, I guess, representation of Star Trek in that Star Trek 2008 movie that should have been the most appealing to a broad audience. And again, it has reached that audience over the decade since, but not in the way you would expect it. It just, because it was just played over and over and over again on cable television, and it's been, rented out on DVDs and Blu-rays, and that's done well there. But again, it's just not the way I perceived and hoped it would go ahead and resonate with an audience. I'm still hoping that there's going to be one last shot. Maybe if Chris Hemsworth comes back for a guest appearance as the older Kirk, quote unquote, then I that could be a possibility, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, my hopes are there, but it's getting dashed at some point in time, I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah, I just really do think that Strange New Worlds could do all of what we're talking about for Star Trek. I just think that they need
it's
to.
already too late.
Yeah,
You
well,
had to
it's
introduce the series on
gotta
broadcast. Yeah,
cover your eyes, maybe look through your fingers, and press the go button and hope for it to do it.
I
And
just
and I really do think that Strange New Worlds could do it.
it could have if it would have been introduced on television, on CBS television back in the day, but
Mm.
that ship it's already a known property on streaming and already on Paramount Plus, and I think people who have gone that wanted to see it are going out of their way to see it on Paramount Plus, and I think that's probably what you're going to get from that series, and that's a shame because, like you said, it's such a well-made series and they have so much fun doing it. Seemingly, I
Mhm.
just think it's so well done, and I'm looking forward to catching season 2 and letting everybody know our thoughts right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So, if you have thoughts on the Star Trek universe and you think there's actually a property or something, whether it's a movie or a series or something that can resonate with a huge global audience, even larger than what they're doing today, please let us know your thoughts. Pop Culture Cosmos at yahoo.com. Yeah, DGen, he agrees with me. Unfortunately, it's a little too late for Strange New Worlds to go ahead and do that, because if it comes out now on CBS, it's probably just going to be put in the death slot, and you and I will be just cursing CBS all over. They'll probably put it like Sunday nights at 10 or something like that. So yeah, like
Yeah.
great. DGen says by the time it hits network, all on Paramount Network, it will have been played out on Paramount Plus. Yeah, that's probably the case. So
Yeah, but you're forgetting about the channel surfers, right? The channel surfers who are just going to accidentally discover the show and then tell their friends about it. Like that
yeah,
that really grassroots organic discovery of a show.
they didn't
I
give
think that
Star Trek
that's
Discovery
missing.
much of a chance, though. I mean, when they were
Well,
showing the episodes that had already appeared on Paramount Plus, they showed it like in that later summer, from season 1 on CBS as filler during the course of summer. It didn't do well at all, and they just never blinked twice since.
yeah, I think some of the problem with I'm sorry, this is going to be a Star Trek episode, I guess, but I think that the problem with Star Trek Discovery was that first sweep of episodes where there was just so much Klingon, and please, I love me the Klingons, but my goodness, that was too much, and it was spoken solely in Klingon with all of those subtitles and
Yeah.
all of that. It was just a lot to ask from anybody who would be like, "Let's give this new Star Trek show a shot." And that's what you were greeted with. It wasn't compelling television for a new Star Trek a new person giving Star Trek a chance to see. It was great for the old fans and those of us who've been around for ages, but for somebody who might just be giving a Star Trek episode a shot, that would have been very off-putting.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that Paramount will someday put it on a platform that will actually garner a mass amount of individuals that are new to the Star Trek universe, and hopefully will appreciate it as much as we do as well. But before we head to the break, my friend, I wanted to go ahead and get your thoughts. Again, in a few days, Disney Plus will debut the series known as Secret Invasion, which is always a fun time because it involves Nick Fury. I have actually more interest in this because Samuel L. Jackson is back. Some of the past, what, 3 years now plus since Avengers Endgame has been a very much of a mixed bag, both on Disney Plus and also on the movies. And I've watched it all, and I'm just, again, just up and down, up and down, up and down. DGen says he knows the secret. I wonder if he's a scroll. Maybe you are, my friend, and you just don't know it yet. But your thoughts, my friend, on Marvel Secret Invasion, and before we head on out.
Yeah, it's I mean, I have Disney Plus, and it's one of those subscriptions that I haven't let go of. Paramount Plus, even with Star Trek on it, because I don't really watch a whole lot else on Discovery or on Paramount Plus. I tend to let that one drop off for a few months and then I might pick it back up again. But Disney Plus is absolutely one of those
Emperor's New
subscriptions,
Groove, baby.
yeah, that I hold on to for so many reasons. And Emperor's New Groove, Hercules, and Beauty and the Beast are only three of those reasons. But no, I'm always clocking the new Marvel shows when they pop up on Disney Plus, and even the Star Wars stuff. Begrudgingly, as a Star Trek fan, I look forward to a new season or whatever. So
Well,
um,
Andor killed it. So if they
yeah,
could take anything from that, I know the book of Slobo Fett was not exactly the most thrilling.
yeah.
Uh, Kenobi, you could take it or leave it as far as that's concerned. I thought it was okay, even though the battles themselves were hilarious. Let me just throw a rock on you and then just walk away, assuming you're dead. How about that? Because I know later on in a movie that was made 40 years ago, I'm supposed to let you live and then kill you then. So,
Yeah, for sure.
okay, figure that one out.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, Star Wars logic, there's logic in all of those kinds of shows. So,
absolutely
yeah.
reminds me so much of a Final Fantasy 16, which we should also talk about before we head on out, as far as maybe put some video game talk in there after all, but we'll see. But I think that when it comes to what we're seeing with Secret Invasion of Marvel, I like to see what's going on. It's just intrigue. This reminds me a little bit of the best of the Marvel movies that's out there, and that's Captain America: Winter Soldier, because of the spy factor, because of the intrigue, because of the deception that went on in that movie, and what ultimately we learned, and the shock that came to us as far as you know that Hydra was actually it had infiltrated every part of the what was going on, and it's just a complete shock. And my gosh, what Captain America and Black Widow had to do to go ahead and help save the world at that point in time. So your thoughts on this as far as Secret Invasion? Can it grab some of that nostalgia? Can it grab some of that intrigue, some of that espionage love that we have from, again, one of the best, if not the best, entries in the MCU? Actually, if you go to popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, hint, hint, spoiler, you'll see it at number one for me as far as the top of the MCU list. But your thoughts on if it can have some of that little je ne sais quoi that Captain America Winter Soldier has?
I mean, I'm certainly pulling for that to be the case. I certainly want that to be the case. And I think that Marvel has had a few misses recently, we can say. And I think that they need a win, and I certainly hope that this will be a win in the a tick under the W column. There you go, for Marvel.
DGen says Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. vibes as well. I'm not a big fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I got tired of that after season one, I can tell you, and I know it dragged on seemingly forever. And I think in the case we just talked about Star Trek being put on a broadcast platform, I think Agents of Shield being on a broadcast platform, Melinda, I think that was its undoing. I just thought it just made it less compelling each year, and it just became just another ABC show.
Yeah.
Agent Carter was great in season one, and just like didn't take that momentum into season two and just flopped, which is the reason why it got canceled after two seasons. I think with Agents of Shield, it just dragged. It just dragged on. I just lost interest after a little while, and I just think that this could spice things up. It's only 6 episodes, and I think that's for the best for something like this that could really tell some good stories that will resonate in future things like Captain America next year, which is no longer New World Order, but now Brave New World.
Yeah, I think that this series, as long as it is 6 episodes that are like action packed and always forward moving. In 6 episodes, you don't need to stop down for one of the infamous shopping episodes that we always talk about. You don't need a break from storytelling when you only have 6 episodes. You can hit the gas and you can stay on the gas, maybe even hit the nos a couple of times.
Because I even told you with Star Wars Andor, which was also one of the best shows
Mhm.
of last year, they did have a couple episodes which were filler, aka shopping episodes, as you've
Yeah.
talked about. And 6 episodes, you don't need to. You can just hit it hard and heavy for 6 episodes that will really
Yes.
resonate with an audience.
Yeah, 6 episodes that are just relentless. That's what it needs to be.
Absolutely. And believe me, the Marvel Cinematic Universe coming off the decent performance, which we'll talk about here in a little bit as far as our box office grades with Guardians of the Galaxy, getting things in the right direction would be great. And it all starts with Marvel's Secret Invasion coming next week as we talk about this. So, what are your thoughts out there on Marvel's Secret Invasion? Are you going to catch the Secret Invasion? Are you glad to see Nick Fury back? Even though it really doesn't explain why he was missing for quite a bit of time. I know he was in the space station and all that, but you hear him in these interviews, and he really wanted to be part of some of these other movies like Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Wanted to be a part of that and can't understand why he wasn't. So, your thoughts though on Marvel's Secret Invasion? Are you glad to see this invasion for Marvel and where it will lead out? Let us know your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, before we head on out, we will actually save the Final Fantasy 16 talk to next week. And thank goodness, because Final Fantasy, trying to explain that and why they just jump around so much as far as their numbers actually hurts my brain when I talk about that, just like the Fast and Furious movies do. And I actually saw one earlier this week, Fast X, and hurt my brain even more. So before we head on out, T Jen says, I am furious for Secret Invasion and cannot wait. Pardon the pun right there for you. But Degen says he's going to get Final Fantasy 16. Got it. More power to you if you really go ahead and support Final Fantasy. But before we head on out, my friend, wanted to go ahead and do a little bit a update on the box office as far as the movies that have come out so far this box office season, as far as the summer season, which started with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And we'll give it a little bit of grade as far as what these major movies have done so far. Or did you want to even go farther back to when it was actually in February when some of these even hit movies came out even more? You tell me, how far back do you want to go on?
I mean, do we go back to like when John Wick dropped? Is that
I had a feeling you might say that. You
yeah.
can. You can.
Yeah. I think that that's a good spot to start.
Okay, so we'll start with that period of time when there was some really good movies coming out.
Mhm.
I think we'll start with Shazam: Fury of the Gods, which came out in February. The end result for Shazam: Fury of the Gods was $132 million worldwide take, and already, as you and I both know, if you've seen the commercials, it's already out on Max.
Yep.
It's not perceived to be very well thought of in the annals of DC movies. It's obviously got tied into the controversy with Black Adam and
Right.
obviously everything leading with James Gunn and all that. So I don't want to say it was doomed to fail, but by all intents and purposes, it looked like it was doomed to fail.
Yeah, it's they certainly didn't do any favors for the movie.
Hmm. I agree with you. I agree with that. And it's something that was cost $200 million to make or thereabouts, even if it costs right around 150 million. This movie is going to lose money overall, and to me, I have to give that an F.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah, I think so. D minus. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
D minus. You're much kinder than I am. You're much kinder than I am indeed. But
It's my Canadian showing.
there you go. Absolutely. Another movie that came around that time was Cocaine Bear.
Oh my
Cocaine
gosh.
Bear
Yes.
was a movie that actually didn't, people didn't think it was going to be very much of a hit. And it did, for all intents and purposes, do a profit at the box office overall. I think it was a 20 to $30 million cost movie, and it made $89 million at the box office, and it's done well since then in its streaming capacities as far as rentals, pay per views, things of that nature. Air is another movie that came around that time. It's now on Amazon. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually catch Air. That also did $89 million. Both of these movies, I'm going to give a solid B for. I think that they won't be given any type of thought as far as Air, maybe for later on for some Oscar consideration. But I even think it's not that great of a movie, but it was really solid enough. Your thoughts on both Air and Cocaine Bear?
Well, okay, so Cocaine Bear is one of those movies that's going to become a cult classic. That's what's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen with that movie. So, because of that, I'm okay with the B grading that you gave it.
Mm-hmm.
But for Air, I'm going to be a little bit harder on, even though Viola Davis, brilliant, please.
Mm-hmm.
All hail the queen. I think that that movie just I'm not I don't know. If it to me it felt like it missed something. I don't know what that is. I can't quite put my finger on it. It just didn't quite do something for me, and I'm not sure what it was that was missing. But I would give that movie like a B minus, maybe even a C.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm just intrigued on that because it seems to have gotten a good perception as
Hmm.
far as overall, and decent box office running for that comparative
Yeah.
to what it costs. So
Hmm.
I think that maybe because are you associated because of the fact that the Matt Damon Ben Affleck part of it, is that that's probably the reason why you're not as high on the overall performance?
No, I don't think so. I don't mind a Matt Damon Ben Affleck
Well, you
film.
just did
I'm
you
not against
expected
that.
more?
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm not quite sure what it was, but there was just something that was missing. There was just something that didn't it didn't grab me. There were parts of it that, missed.
One movie I think that you and I were both very disappointed in, that it did not perform well, and that isn't the vampire genre, is Renfield. As
Mm.
this movie with Nicholas Holt, Nicholas Cage, I really wanted to do well. Unfortunately, it only garnered $26 million at the box office. It was a failure upon all. Not. I guess it will go down as a failure and a bomb, but it was didn't cost that much as far as the movie is concerned. But still, has to be disappointing. Nicholas Cage is getting a lot more high profile roles. This didn't help him because as much as I enjoyed the interactions between Nicholas Holt and Nicholas Cage, there was not enough of it because everything around it was absolutely horrible and some of the worst things I've seen in movies in probably a couple years since the
Yes.
Matrix. Since the Matrix and the movie with Chris Pratt that we talked about, that was some of our worst of movies. So I think
Yeah.
this, yeah, Renfield, everything outside of their conversations was really that bad.
Yeah, and that's too bad because, as you said, there were expectations around this one for both of us, I think,
Yeah.
and yeah, just seeing it not quite, suck the blood, the box office dry. I No, that's terrible. No, I'm just gonna take that back out of the universe and put that back in my brain. Um, no, they just, yeah, it was unfortunate. We had big expectations for that, so yeah,
Unfortunately, it did not hypnotize and suck the blood out of audiences. Unfortunately, it's only sucking up red ink for the
yeah.
movie
See, there it
company.
is, Gerald.
There you go.
There it is. That's the
Absolutely.
one. Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely, indeed. But before we head on out, my friend, I do want to touch on some of the bigger movies. One movie that you did ask about is John Wick Chapter 4.
Mhm.
This series, again, this comes from a very small movie as far as cost wise. It's a garnered profits every time it has. Even John Wick Chapter 4, which has what, an 80 to $100 million budget, still earned $432 million worldwide. They're already planning, even though I cannot tell you the ending as the spoilers. I'm just going to say it's going to be very inventive and creative how they create a John Wick Chapter 5, but it is what I'm told by the executives that were been in interviews saying that there is one on the way. Your thoughts on John Wick Chapter 4? I think it gets a solid B plus from me.
Oh yeah, easily. It easily gets that grade. And I'm excited for everything that's coming down the pipeline in the John Wick universe, like the Continental, the show that is going to be focusing more on the ballerinas and what
Mm-hmm.
they were all about. I'm really excited to get into that universe and explore it a little bit deeper.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was the really first thing that came off, was right around Valentine's Day. That one absolutely has been talked about ad nauseum as far as the first week did so well, over $100 million at the box office. But unfortunately, it really just the word of mouth, and it had one of the worst second weeks for any Marvel movie in history and ended up only getting $463 million. I think for this one, it gets a D. I think it really just disappointed. A D for disappointment for Disney. A lot of D's there, my friend, on Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yeah, I'm gonna go C minus on it. I recently watched the movie, and I mean, I was whelmed. I was not overwhelmed by the movie. It delivered on the things that I expected it to deliver on. It had the Paul Rudd sass in the moments where the Paul Rudd sass was needed to kind of carry a scene or whatever. And no, it was an Ant Man movie. That's really the best way that I can put it.
Well, again, you're a lot kinder than I am on that because I know it was a D for disappointment for
Yeah.
Disney. I will say, though, speaking of Disney, they did have The Little Mermaid, which came out over the Memorial Day holiday, has earned $424 million, 239 of which is at the domestic theater. So it's done good, pretty darn good in domestically, but very mixed overseas because of some issues, political or culture wise, whatever you want to say. It has not resonated with an international audience, and I think the way that Disney had hoped. So $424 million total worldwide. I'm going to give it a B minus. I think that it could have been done so. I could have been something much more special. I think had it been embraced by an audience worldwide as much as it has been in the U.S.
A lot of the critiques that I'm seeing about the movie are not so much with how the movie was cast, but actually a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing conversation around is actually the makeup that they did for Ursula.
Mm.
And a lot of folks are saying you should have hired a drag queen makeup artist because Ursula was inspired by a drag queen. And to have somebody do a lackluster, almost, um, gosh, I can't think of the not caricature of drag makeup, but it was again kind of an underwhelming kind of delivery on the makeup that we expected to see on a live action Ursula. I think is the roundabout way to get at what I'm trying to say. So I'm seeing a lot of conversation about that more so than I am about the original controversy over the casting.
Creed 3 also came out this time period and actually did pretty solid, 274 million dollars at the box office. I'm going to give that a solid B, B plus. I also want to go ahead and mention Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which came out earlier this month. That's at 411 million already. I think that's doing very well. I'm going to give that an A minus right now. I think it's doing extremely well. Your thoughts on Creed 3 and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse?
So the Creed movies are movies that I haven't really gravitated towards. So I don't really have a sense of how this Creed did in comparison to Creed 2 or Creed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to stick with your grading on that one because I am not informed enough to really debate on that one. But yeah, I think that anything with Michael B. Jordan in it, I am probably gonna watch eventually. I'll get to it.
Okay, fair enough indeed. But Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I think, is doing really well. Its hold is pretty good. I think that it's going to earn some good money. I think by the time it enters its run, you'll see $700-800 million most likely, or maybe a little bit less than that, but still
Mhm.
a big win for Sony indeed. Before we head on out, the last three movies I want to go ahead and touch on. Fast X, which I just finished watching, and I can't get those 2.5 hours of my life back, and I'm so sorry that I did watch it. Jason Momoa, who people are saying is the best thing about the movie, I think to me was probably one of the not so best parts of the movie. I just think he tried to so hard to be the Joker and unfortunately didn't come across as such. Plus the dialogue with everybody else is so bad. It reeks. If it was food and put on my table, I would throw it out. So overall, I thought the movie absolutely stunk. But the movie always generates, as I told you before when we were talking about it, generates a ton of dollars overseas. 540 of the $680 million is overseas, just almost 80% share overseas. And I'll tell you what, Fast X for that is going to get a solid B for that, even though it's not going to do anywhere near some of the other Fast movies have done, which have done over $1 billion. Still, generating that type of money overseas for a movie this bad, I think it's got to be appreciated.
Yeah, I think so too. And honestly, I was a little bit surprised because my girls back home in Nova Scotia, Janet, who is part of Wizards and Wine, she went to see it in theaters, and she really said that it was a lot of fun, and she would consider seeing the movie again. So
What's
I
she
know
feeling like?
it's no, of course. Janet is also a lover of like B horror movies. Like she loves
Oh, well, there you
those.
go.
So perhaps a little bit of that cheese is what appealed to her.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. But the last two movies we'll touch on are the highest two grossing so far this year. I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, this is a little bit of a disappointment overall because generated, it will generate a profit. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
But at $800 million, and probably not going to get that much higher, for a first week of May Marvel movie. And touching on that, that's maybe part of the reason why they're shaking up so many movies over the next few years. I know the Avatars got extended out to 2031, which actually kind of ticked off Zoe Saldana because she said she'll be my age when the time that they're finally all said and done. Then we talked about Deadpool 3 being moved up to a May release because they think it's a better shot for them
Yeah.
than Captain America. They moved that back to July. Did a whole bunch of things. Added some possible Star Wars movies that in some slots as well, and some other Disney movies. But when it comes down to it, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 not earning over $1 billion, I think is a miss and a little bit of a disappointment. I'm giving it a B minus.
Okay, I think that's fair. Also, I think that it's silly that Captain America movies don't come out on or around July 1st. 4th.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm got confused with Canada for a second.
Well, there is a July movie next year. Captain America is bumped back, but it's later in July.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
it's
gonna.
like Star Wars movies not coming out in or around May 4th. It just seems silly.
Yeah, it just seems silly. And again, the first week of May has always been dominated by Marvel. The past 10, 12, 13 years, and unfortunately, for Disney, it's not going to meet the lofty numbers that they're used to. Even Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness last year earned over $1 billion, and
Yeah.
obviously with that, that's a May release as well. And that's a movie I didn't think highly of. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, most people are thinking it's a better movie than that, and it didn't generate that much enough money, I think, in the eyes of Disney. So that's kind of a little bit of a disappointment there. But one thing that's not a disappointment, and the big winner so far this year, is Universal and Illuminations, the Super Mario Brothers movie, and that gets A+. That has done gangbusters. I just got a chance to also see that. It's cute for what it is. It is short. They were smart enough to go ahead and not make it, not extend their welcome. $1.3 billion at the box office. A+ for Universal
Yeah, that
and Nintendo.
nostalgia. Yeah, that nostalgia is strong when it comes to Super Mario Brothers, and I think that doing the correct thing and making it truly a kids movie, and keeping some of those jokes that are in there for the wink wink adults in the theater, I think was really smart of them.
Well, there you go, my friend. Some great thoughts from you and what was going on in the theaters so far. Hopefully, we will go ahead and revisit that either later this year or maybe at the end of the summer as far as what the rest of the movies did, starting with The Flash this weekend. So, let me hear your thoughts out there on if you would give any of the movies, the big movies, or even medium sized movies, or even smaller movies like Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Amongst Thieves. We didn't even talk about that, although that's kind of like a sore spot for us because we know that disappointed at the box office for such a movie that was so revered. So don't want to give that one a grade because I'm kind of hurts me right here when I talk about it. But if you have thoughts on the movies in the box office so far and what grades you would give it, let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, as always, great to have you here. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
Man, I have done some more kind of tomorrow is going to be our final tech tests to make sure that everything for the stream for the kickoff of season 3 for Vampires and Vitae will go flawlessly. So we're very excited about that. Final details of characters are starting to come to life and all of that kind of stuff as well. So if you are at all interested, you can find Vampires and Vitae on YouTube. We would love to see you for the stream. Give us a subscription. Drop a little subscribe there if you don't mind. And even if you never watch it again, that would be fine. I'm just kidding. No, we want you to be there every
No,
single episode. Yeah.
you want them
No,
there every time,
of course.
every
Yeah.
episode.
We work really, really hard on the show, and we hope that the passion that we have for the show comes through on the stream.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It is Vampires and Vitae, Wild Beyond the Witchlight with the Wizards and Wine. Also, what she does with Forbidden Lands and everything. Basin, oh my gosh, she is just the queen of tabletop RPG, and you can catch it all on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm just wishing you the best of luck. Don't bite on Robbie Ross, your husband's neck, too hard and produce that much blood. Although it would make for good YouTube, I will tell you that. But I'll tell you what, it's just great to have you here, though. It's just so thankful and so blessed. Looking forward to our conversation next week. Well, until we get to Final Fantasy, which we got to talk about, which I'm not
Yeah.
loving to a conversation on that. Maybe we already have some early thoughts on Secret Invasion. Oh my gosh, the summer never ends with pop culture, and I'm really enjoying it as well. Any last thoughts on that too? No?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what Final Fantasy is going to do and how that rollout is going to happen. I'm sorry, I'm still so wrapped up in Diablo 4 that I forget that there are other things happening in the world sometimes. So
Of
yeah.
course, indeed. So that is Melinda, Diablo fanatic, and also their tabletop RPG queen. And you can go ahead and check her out today, along with a great crew and a great cast of Vampires Vitae this weekend for season 3. So from Melinda Barkhouse Ross, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great